COVID season, we will refer to it from now on. Greg Coyle with me. After Greg, what was a pretty good week one. What'd you think overall?
I liked the gambling outcomes. Those were all terrific. I see you actually went into our spreadsheet and highlighted them in green and red.
Yeah, I did notice that. There was one red mark, I believe, on the sheet.
Indeed, yeah. We'll flip that. What was it, 7-1 for last week? And I had the one.
I think, yep, 7-1 overall. And listen, we had to have one loss because we went head to head, so somebody was going to lose. There was no way we were
We
getting around
set
that.
ourselves up for that, huh?
To be honest, actually, I think we could have gone like 0-1 because you had the number at 3 and I had it at 2.5. If it landed on the number, we could have had a push in there, but the chances of that happening were very slim. All right, listen, I got to ask you. So week one, obviously, we were stellar on our picks. We'll do some accounting a little bit later on, but I want to ask you, what's your overall impression on your takeaways from week one? What stood out to you as far as teams are concerned, as far as just gameplay was concerned? What's popping and what were you paying attention to for week two?
Good play on the field. I honestly was pretty impressed with no preseason and everything. Quite frankly, I feel like they've been begging for that for years, and honestly, it looks like we can go to it. So the things that stood out are, the teams with new coaches and new offenses seemed a little rusty, just like we kind of envisioned. And I think that's why you end up with a pretty good week one record. But I thought the play on the field was pretty good. It seems like a couple of injuries are popping out, but that happens in every year. It's not specific to this year. So I thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it. I got my usual sleepy after the 1 o'clocks because, there's just a lot of excitement and I was overexcited and I tend to get sleepy during the 4 o'clocks, but good Sunday night and great Monday night games.
You're such an old man getting sleepy at the 4 o'clock. Papa needs his nap.
It's getting there, man. It's getting there.
Listen, I just got to say how fantastic you look for week two. And I'm glad you're rocking the side part. You said you were going to step up the game and the look for week two now that we're streaming this live on Facebook and YouTube, and you came through. That side part is strong. I'm hoping that that's just going to lead to continued success, that we're focused here and we didn't spend too much time on our hair for this podcast.
Well, since we're off the rails anyway, the debate that just went on in the last 48 hours with my friends, quick question. Pumpkin beer or no pumpkin beer? Do you like it? Is it a seasonal treat for you, or are you out on that?
All right, so I'm not anti-pumpkin, but I think a little pumpkin every now and then is fine. I'm not going out and buying a case of pumpkin beer, but maybe you have a 6-pack and I'll split it with the wife and I'll have one or two in a sitting there, or I'll go for a pumpkin coffee every now and then. But no, people get obsessed with pumpkin and they overdo it.
What about 3 cases, Joe? Would you go out and buy 3 cases? Because that's the move. You got to get it before it's all scooped up.
Yeah, and then you can people like you are the ones who go to the store and get all the toilet paper before the quarantine kicks in.
No, but I do know how the pumpkin beer goes, so I do get all the pumpkin beers, and I am saving exactly 10, a 6-pack of Dogfish Head and a 4-pack of Pumpkin for my wife after she delivers our baby. So we've got a reserve locked in.
To be fair, you had to provide for the family, so you're a provider. That's what I'm hearing.
Indeed.
All right.
Indeed.
Let's get to football this week. Week 2. I think we went on enough of a tangent to start this podcast here. Listen, we are coming off an awesome week. Our only loss was in the game where you and I went head to head. It was fantastic, and we cautioned you in week 1, don't bet your whole bankroll, right? Because we're going to see how things play out, and there's always a lot of unknowns. Listen, I'm saying the same thing in week 2. I think we have one point of information, but let's not overreact. And I think this is the biggest week to overreact in the NFL. So remember that as we go through this. Let's use those points of information as one point. But I think we're seeing some of these lines this week reflect that overreaction. So let's just jump right into it. The first game I want to go to is the Jacksonville Jaguars +8 at Tennessee. Jacksonville obviously pulled out the outright upset over Indy. A lot of survivor pools went down. Very glad I took the Bills in mine. I think I got half my survivor pool is out this week or has one strike against them if it's the 2-strike league. So I'm very happy about that. But this week they are getting 8 points going against Tennessee, who had a narrow win against Denver on Monday Night Football, and apparently still plenty of kicking problems over there in Tennessee. Greg, I know you have a like in this one. Who do you like and why? And what's your impression of both of these teams after 1 week?
Yeah, so if anyone tells you that they're not surprised by the Jags coming out there and winning that game on the field, right? I think we were all surprised by that. But Minshew 19-20, that's a game right there. I know it wasn't for high yardage, but quite frankly, I'm more impressed with 95% completion percentage than somebody throwing a 300-yard game. Like that's pretty good. But so obviously a little bump on the Jags. Tennessee looked good, right? We should not have won the bet on Monday night for Denver, right? With all those kicks, you get a Hall of Fame kicker shanking all those balls. And
wait a minute. First of all, I completely disagree with you. First of all, the right side is the winning side always. Number one,
Agreed.
I'm never going to apologize for winning a bet, and I won't say we should have.
I didn't apologize. You didn't hear an apology out of my mouth.
You're right. But the other thing is, too, look, there were plays like that throughout the game. Let's not forget, Denver got stopped on a 1st and goal at the 1, right? So a goal line stand and things go. These plays, we saw the pass interference in the Dallas game, in the Cincinnati game from last week.
Yep.
A play here or there makes a difference. There's a reason Al Pacino says it's a game of inches. And on this team, on this podcast, we fight for that inch. We die for that inch, Greg Hoyle.
So, and by the way, we ended up last year sprinkling a ton of money on the under. I think it was 1.5 field goals for the Titans.
Yep.
And we had like the last 4 weeks of the year. So if that's still out there, if they're still doing the field goal props, I haven't looked for it yet, but quite frankly, it looks like that's popping up again. We might want to just try and jump back on that. Usually it's under 1.5 field goals for any teams. I can't see Vrabel being too enthusiastic about trotting out the kicker when they're on like the 35-yard line. But big underlying idea for me is Taylor Lewan, whether or not he's going to play. No practice, at least the report from today. They're on the short week, right, which the Jags have been, they had the early game, the 1 o'clock on Sunday. The Jags did, and Tennessee had the late game on Monday, correct? Right?
Yep.
So you're dealing with them traveling back. They got to get, back there, kind of losing about a day and a half on the Jags. So I think that's just a situational disadvantage. And I thought Tennessee looked good. I thought the Jags looked better than expected, right? So if Lewan's not playing, who's I think probably their best offensive lineman, there's a couple of other injury questions that I'm not as concerned about with. A.J. Brown, you know how I feel about wide receivers. He's out, who's their best wide receiver. That doesn't sway me a point and a half or, anything like that. But it certainly helps me, right?
Right.
So it doesn't go against me. I think the key thing that I want to mention is if Lewan's out, I'm all over it. And also, I got it on 2 different sites, one at 8 minus 110 and then one at 7.5 minus 115. So that's just a little piece of advice of how different one site can be from another, that you should be playing at multiple places and have multiple different accounts. So that way you don't have to lay 115 for a worse number. It was a little wacky when I checked the 2 places. So obviously I'm going to roll with the 8 minus 110. And I'm assuming if you're not practicing today, you're probably not playing on Sunday on a short week. So I'm going to probably assume Lewan's going to be out.
Yeah, and that's a big loss for them. Look, obviously we were big on Denver going into that game, and one of the reasons is because they were able to control, and I'm not going to say, contain, but control Derrick Henry and what he was able to do out there. And now you're missing one of your best offensive linemen. It's only going to get harder. I don't think Jacksonville will be able to do the same thing, but I do think that they did a solid job against the running game for the Colts, and the Colts have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Obviously, we know about the injury to Marlon Mack in that one too, but still they were able to limit the running game there. Look, I think turnovers are so key. We saw that in week 1. Phillip Rivers just has a propensity to turn the ball over, and I think that cost the Jaguars big. The Colts big against the Jaguars. I think that's going to be a theme. The one thing that Mike Vrabel's teams don't do is turn the ball over, but because of that, they don't blow teams out either, right? They play a lot more conservative style, and so I think the Jaguars are following a similar model. They're going with those short passes. You mentioned that completion percentage for Gardner Minshew. And yeah, I think in a division game early in the season, I think this is going to be a close one. So, look, even if you get a backdoor cover, you're trailing by 14 in a meaningless touchdown at the end, you'll take it if you're taking the 8 points with the Jags. But everything in their favor this week, and can't wait to load up against them in week 3. Look ahead. I don't look ahead for who that might be, Greg, but if the Jaguars do end up squeaking out another win here, or at least even playing close, I think next week is a nice time to load up on them. And I don't even know who they're playing yet. I haven't looked ahead.
Yeah. Well, you get the +2 that I'm not even thinking back end cover here. I'm thinking that they don't know how good or bad they are, but they've got some confidence, right? So, typically they say every team's got some hope going into week 1. Well, the Jags have carried that hope. I thought the Jags were like one of the only teams that actually didn't have hope because they were just trading off Ngakoue, right, and releasing Fournette, right? Like, I don't care about Fournette, but Ngakoue, that's a big trade right there. I think they can carry some momentum here and, probably not win on the field, right? But their situation is good that they should be able to keep this close.
I'll say this too. I think the whole thing about tanking is interesting, right? I don't think any NFL player is ever tanking out there. They might not be the best player, and you might have traded away better players from a GM or an organizational standpoint, but your career is too short, and there are too few teams and too many guys who want your job for players in the NFL to tank, to go out there and try and lose a game. So clearly Gardner Minshew, Gardner Minshew, he's like a folk hero. He's never going to throw a game. That guy's going to be like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Even if they're down 100, he's going to be out there trying. I think we saw that in the London game last year where they were getting blown out. But he was still out there trying to make it happen. All right, so the Jaguars +8 is Greg's play for that one against Tennessee. The next game we'll go to is the New York Football Giants getting 5.5 points as they head to Chicago. And I think we talked a lot early on about having just a little bit of a difference in games and games that could have went one way or the other. Chicago obviously coming off the win against Detroit in a game that they trailed by 17 at one point. But let's not forget that there was a dropped ball on a walk-in touchdown that Chicago loses this game. What was it? DeAndre Swift, right? For the Detroit Lions. Could have just walked in, ball hit him in the hands, and he went to run upfield before he got it. That play happens, and they lose. Say that again?
Rookies.
Yeah. Rookie got excited. Kid got excited,
The stage was too big for him.
Yeah, he was ready to celebrate a game-winning touchdown, and it didn't happen. So I think that you need to think about that as we go on. The other thing that you have to think about here is the Giants. That final score was a little bit deceiving. When you look at the Giants, they had, I think it was a 27 or 29 play drive where they went down the field and then they turned it over. I'm exaggerating. I'm using hyperbole, but I think it was literally like 18 or 19 plays. 19 plays. And then Daniel Jones, gets under some pressure and throws a pick in the red zone there. That's a different game, right? If that goes a different way. And so I think that's really important to look at. The other thing is, I saw so much that I liked about that Giants offense against a Steelers defense that just looked ridiculously fast. I was big on the Steelers defense coming into the season. I actually picked the Steelers on our Monday Night Football pregame over here, and they exceeded my expectations with how fast they look. Bud Dupree and TJ Watt are monsters, and they play with that Tomlin attitude. We all remember how bad Pittsburgh's offense was last year with a quarterback named Duck and one of Santa's reindeer playing quarterback for them. So that's who their quarterbacks were last year. I think people forgot about Ben Roethlisberger, and I think that is some people are holding that against the Giants' defense. Look, they have their holes still, but they brought in some good players. Their cornerback opposite James Bradbury still leaves something to be desired because they had DeAndre Baker get arrested and cut from the team. They also had another opt-out. But they brought in Blake Martinez, who I think is really solid for that linebacking core. They brought in a couple players. And I think defensively they're going to be better than you saw, and I think they were playing what at the end of the season could be the best defense in the league. So I think they take a major step forward this week. And I don't think Mitch Trubisky can take advantage of the weaknesses that the Giants have in their secondary. I think that Detroit and Chicago, I think, are going to vie for two of the worst teams in the league this year. And again, Detroit's defense didn't look so great, and that was against the Lions team that didn't have Kenny Golladay in there, their best wide receiver. So this week, I think that the Giants go into Chicago. Love it with the 5.5. I think they win this one outright, Greg.
Yeah, that's a lot of points, right, for a quarterback that you shouldn't really have any confidence in. What did he start having? Good drives when Detroit probably started going into some sort of prevent defense, and then by the time they tried to button it up too much, it was too late. Too late until they almost got the game-winning pass there to Swift, like you mentioned, right? So, yeah, 5 points is interesting to me. So I have no issue at all. The rest, and I brought this up to you before, the short rest and they're traveling, right? But there was a home game, right? So they get home game and they'll be on short rest and heading out to Chicago. So that's a little bit concerning, but again, there's not good quarterback play for Chicago, so I have no issues at all with that call.
Listen, and I'll give it to you, right? Short rest. I think short rest it plays more of a factor later on in the season than it does earlier in the season. But I'll tell you, coming against that Pittsburgh team that hits and just keeps on hitting you, I think you might be a little more sore. So I could see that
and
impacting
no preseason. Right. So no preseason. So the muscles and everything like that. This is going to be the first time that they're actually really using those bad boys. So that's that. I agree with you. First game, and then as you get further along in the season, that's where the rest I think would be key.
Right, and it was a new coach too. We're talking about first game with a new coach, Joe Judge, his first season with the team. They got hopefully some kinks out, and they're not going to limit Saquon Barkley like that. That was insane. They were in the backfield. I swear, I thought there were a couple times Daniel Jones was just going to hand it off to the Steelers because they were right there when he was getting the handoff. I've never seen anything like that. And look, I know the Giants have holes in the offensive line that they have. It's the first year this group of guys is together. They had Nate Solder opt out. But I'm giving some of that. I'm putting some of that on the Giants. But I am telling you, I saw the speed of that Steelers defense, and boy, I was impressed, man. They were one of the fastest defenses I've seen, if not the fastest this year for sure. So, all right, we'll move on to the next one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers there lost. He's getting criticized after his first game by his coach, Bruce Arians, saying he didn't have a good game. I think everybody knows Tom didn't have a good game.
Right.
This week they host the Carolina Panthers. They're laying 8 to the division rival. Panthers lost a close one to the Las Vegas Raiders. You have a play you like in this one, maybe not on the on the number. What do you like in this one, Greg?
Yeah, let me give a correlation here to something that I've experienced, right? Bruce Arians is the sales manager giving the successful sales guy a hard time for having a couple of bad weeks. And Tom Brady obviously didn't have a good game. You don't have to tell that dude that he had a bad game and he missed some throws. Like, what are you doing? So they're going to, in my opinion, they're going to gel. I'm not as high on Tampa Bay as everyone else. I wish I would have stuck with what I was going to do and stick with the Saints. It's a revisionist history, but I hated that situation for Tampa,
Right.
and I love this situation. So you you get a bounce back game. Yeah, it's a division rival, but it's Carolina. Carolina looked good on offense last week, but terrible on defense. And even though Rule is a defensive coach, the Panthers just don't have the guys, right? So you're looking at Tom Terrific, and I know you don't like me calling him that, right? But from that side of things, you have a bounce back game for Tom Brady, whose coach is chirping at him, right? He's a sales manager, giving the sales guy a hard time. I see a big bounce back game here, and just because I'm not too sure about what Oakland's defense is, and I do like Tampa's defense, I don't want to take the whole total, and I don't even know what the whole total is sitting at right now, if it's 48 and a half or 49. I'm going to take Tampa to go over 27 and a half for the team total. No Chris Godwin. Seems like there's a chemistry between Brady and Scotty Miller, and just think about how many times Chris Hogan, insert, obscure name here that Tom Brady has
Well,
made
Julian
relevant.
Edelman. Julian Edelman was an obscure name, right?
Boom, and will be again, is
Yeah.
again an obscure name,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He might have like 500-600 receiving yards this year, but
Yeah.
so Godwin will probably be out. He's in the concussion protocol. I think they're going to bounce back. I think they got a lot to prove. So over 27 and a half. I like them to be able to go out there, put up a nice number, and should be in good shape.
And I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how Tom Brady responds to his first loss. Especially, I love that the Patriots won. I'm betting he's reading the papers. I'm betting that he's checking on that. And I'm betting that he's reading the papers and he's checking the lines and seeing he doesn't want to start 0-2 when his former coach is still is out there and still winning. I think the other thing to look at is I don't know how healthy Mike Evans was last week. I know he was questionable leading up to the game, and he didn't have a great game. And maybe just another week of rest might be a little help for him this week. So we'll see how that plays out. But also, look, he's Tom Brady, man. And I think Bruce Arians is a great coach, and I think he knows what he's doing in trying to motivate him. And I think we'll see that play out this week. So Carolina, I think, also has some injuries on the defensive side of the ball, if I'm not mistaken. That they're going to be dealing with this week. So should be very interesting to see, but the over on Tampa plus 27 and a half, I like it. I'll roll with it.
I'm seeing defensive tackle and a defensive end out of the game. But I mean, that to me, their defense, whoever they're trotting out there, isn't going to be able to guard Tampa. So I think it's a nice get right game. I think you're dealing with a motivate. The guy said that he questioned Tom Brady's was it desire or motivation or something, like just one of the words that he said. Like, dude's the most determined and focused guy in the world, and he questioned just his motivation and desire to win. So I think he's not going to go out there and say anything because he just doesn't. I don't think he's going to stick it to him like that. I think he's just going to put up a nice 30+ number, and we're going to be in good shape there.
All right. Our next game is our Better Beware game of the week. Now, Greg, can you remind us who was our Better Beware game of the week last week?
It was the Eagles and the Redskins, and we said that the Redskins' strength was the Eagles' weakness. And I'm not happy to have been right, but I was.
Yeah, we'll get to the Eagles this week in a second, but the idea with the Better Beware is a public favorite that we are going to say, if you're going to play them, we're warning you, this might not be the pick to go with. So this week we're looking at the San Francisco 49ers coming off a loss. They're laying 7 points as they go on the road to face the New York Jets. Okay, I want to know, Greg, did you get to watch any of that game, the 49ers Cardinals game?
Sparingly.
Okay. I think that as soon as Greg Kittle got hurt for them, that offense basically came to a grinding halt. All right.
Oh yeah.
And we already know that they have other injury problems at wide receiver. Look, obviously they lost Emmanuel Sanders in the offseason. Deebo Samuel didn't play for them. I'm not sure if he's a go in this one yet. He's
Nope.
officially out? Or
Yep.
is he okay? I thought he was listed as doubtful.
He's on IR. He's out until week.
There you go. Okay, so no Deebo Samuel again. They have a third string wide receiver, I believe, is in concussion protocol right now. So there are major concerns on the offensive side of the ball for the 49ers right now. On the defensive side of the ball, they've got some issues in their secondary as well. Richard Sherman, he's not playing. They have another cornerback who believe their third string quarterback is in some is dealing with some injuries right now.
I don't know the guy, but it's Jason Barrett, hamstring. He's already out.
And so you've got a ton of problems in the secondary. This is going to be something where I don't know that the Jets have the ability to exploit this in terms of points. However, I think maybe they get an extra first down here or there, right? And all of a sudden, San Francisco's offense can't get on the field. Maybe they kick a field goal. The Jets have their own problems. They don't have anybody at wide receiver, I don't believe, this week. Jamison Crowder, the guy who broke a play for them last week, is out this week, I believe. Also, Le'Veon Bell, he's going to be out for them this week with a hamstring injury. They have a 37-year-old running back in Frank Gore. Love the guy, and he's going to fight hard for those yards, but I don't think he's going to break one. He's not going to run away from anybody at this point in his career. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see. I think this game is a very low-scoring game, and if that's the case, then I say 7 points is a lot of points. Beware of the 49ers this week, and let's not forget the most obvious thing. They're a West Coast team coming east. So, Greg, what are your thoughts on that?
My thought, and I'll go kind of official on that, and it kind of lends to what you're saying. They're just going to want to get out with a win, right? And they're going to need to bleed the clock. Let's go take care of the Jets. I'm trying to go right now and figure out what the lines are at right now.
So I think I saw it at 41 and a half. I think I saw it at last check.
Yeah, I'm getting in on that as we speak, because that Crowder's out. Who like what's Herndon going to have 13 receptions? Which, by the way, if you want to cherry pick that stat, Chris Herndon, the tight end for the Jets, whatever the over is on receptions, why not? I mean, literally no Lev Bell to catch passes out of the backfield, and no Jamison Crowder. It's ridiculous.
You gotta throw the ball to somebody.
Yeah, under, and then the over on Chris Herndon, 41.5. I'm in.
All right. Now this is live betting. I like that. And this is what really live betting is. All right, we're going to go to our next game, which we already mentioned the total play on the Tampa Bay Bucks. We've got the Detroit Lions headed to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Right now the number is Packers minus 6.5. You got another total play that you like in this one, though, Greg?
Yeah, we're going to go with. Sorry, I'm a little distracted here.
I know you got to get your bet in. I got to get the money down before the bet comes off the board. I hear you.
Yep. All right. It's in. We're good. Yeah, so same ilk as the last one, and I'm scrolling right now to go check out the Detroit secondary injuries, and already terrible secondary where they have additional injuries. Trufant out, already listed as out. Akuda looks like he'll be back. Galladay out. So I'm not taking the side here. My thoughts here should really lend to thinking the Packers are going to roll them and cover the spread. But to me, just good offense, bad defense. I would put Detroit kind of in the same bet as the Vikings. It looks like the Vikings took that big of a step back from last year to this year on the defensive side of things. But Rodgers just spreading the ball around. They had, like, it didn't even seem like they got things going on the run game, and started to pound the ball there. So it's 27.5 as the number on the Packers again. And because I just don't want to. I mean, you could take the total in between 48 and 49, but I think if the Packers get up and then they start trying to take the air out of the ball, they got Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. They'll still be able to score, similar to how you saw the Browns, right? You have a good team that gets a lead against a bad team, and while you're taking out of the ball, you just can't help but run for 7-8 yards and score touchdowns pretty quickly. I just like that equation, and I like Rodgers kind of playing with his hair on fire a little bit. I think he's pissed. I really do. And I think he's got good chemistry with all three of those wide receivers. Every part of the offense is back, right? So why do I want to take the 27.5? Because it's the same offense. It's Rodgers. It's the same three receivers. It's the same running back. They added a rookie running back. So I just like it.
Any concern that number, I mean, that's a big number, 27.5, and obviously we saw them put up, 40-something last week. Any concern, though, that there's just going to be, we were in a dome last week against Minnesota, and now you got outdoor, so maybe a few more elements in Green Bay. Where's that? How do you factor that in?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. And as we reference over, hold on, for wacky reasons, I follow Green Bay.
You follow Green Bay? The Green Bay Gazette?
Their weather. Sorry, this is taking a little longer. It's definitely not going to be the fast track, but I really do. I think you're dealing with a worse defense with 66 and sunny on Sunday, right? So certainly not too hot, not too cold. Should be a nice football day. But I think you're dealing with a worse defense than you were on this past Sunday. So you don't get the dome, but yeah, you get another pretty poor team.
Yeah, when you give up that many points to the Chicago Bears, I think Aaron Rodgers is probably licking his chops to get a shot at you this week. All right, so over in the team total for Green Bay, 27.5. That brings us to our next head-to-head matchup here. Greg and I went head-to-head last week on the Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks. How'd that work out?
Yeah, not great.
I thought it worked out swimmingly.
Why you got to bring up old stuff, Joe?
I know. So let's look ahead to this week's head-to-head matchup then. You're right. I'm not living in the past. I'm looking ahead. This week, the LA Rams are headed to Philadelphia. The Rams are getting a point right now. I'll let you decide, Greg. You want to go first or second on this one?
I'll go second.
Okay. So I'm going to roll with the Rams in this one. We saw them on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys, and in the same way that the Pittsburgh Steelers jump off the page to me when I look at their defense, jumped off the screen, I should say, when I saw their defense, Aaron Donald jumped off the screen when I saw him play on Sunday Night Football. The Cowboys were sending double teams at him. I think at one point he did a move out of a video game to Ezekiel Elliott where he threw him with one hand up against the wall. It was like something I had never seen before.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It was really cool. He lifted him off the ground.
I mean, I think I saw that in Mortal Kombat once. One of the characters did that. The guy's an absolute beast. And look, the Cowboys' offensive line is not what it was. I said that last week, but there's still a solid offensive line, and they were double teaming him the entire game. I think that opens it up for people around them. The Philadelphia Eagles line last week was dreadful. Now, they at one point were down to was third string, was it their guard, Greg, their third string guard?
Yeah, third string right tackle.
Playing guard.
the guard they were just trotting out there and still is trotting out there is no good.
Yeah, it was abysmal. And they had two rookies going. Now, look, they do have some people coming back. Lane Johnson is coming back, but he has said he's not 100% for this week. They don't have any depth out there, so if anybody does get hurt, and I'm just trying to think how this offensive line is going to contain Aaron Donald. they can't match up with him one-on-one. And if they try to, that's going to open things up for other guys on the line. And even if they double team him, I saw him get by the Cowboys double teams. I have no doubt he's going to be able to get by the Eagles double teams. And so I think he's going to wreak absolute havoc for them. I think the Rams are a better team. Yes, we have a West Coast team who's coming east, but Sean McVay has been great on the road as the Rams coach, 20-8 overall, and I think he hasn't lost his last 3 openers on the road. So I really like that. And then the last thing is on the defensive side of the ball, they're banged up too. I think that they have both of their defensive ends. One of them was in concussion protocol. Obviously, Vinny Curry's gone. Greg says that's a good thing for the Eagles.
That's a good thing.
In essence, he says it's a good thing. But look, it's depth. So the guy who has to step up, can he fill the role for the number of plays that he needs to? McVay is great at scheming, and I think that this week he is going to have those guys running all over the field. And the one thing that I really liked is that when they went hurry up, they looked a lot better, and I think they need to do more of that this week against the Eagles. Listen, I'm getting a point. I think the Eagles are playing a better team than they played last week, and I think there's just too many problems on that offensive line for Philadelphia. They gave up 27 points to the Washington football team. I'll take Sean McVay this week getting a point on the road. I'll go with the Rams.
So similar to the excessive hype on the pumpkin flavored everything, I think you're a little high on the Rams after that win on Sunday night there. So everything you said about the Eagles is true, and I have no issue with pointing out the warts on the Eagles football team, right? But I would also maintain. I get Lane Johnson will be back, maybe not 100%, but he'll be back. And then you still have 4/5 of the offensive line from last year, which was rated a top 3-4 offensive line back this year. And they might not be as good. They're certainly a little long in the tooth. I, by the way, figured out what long in the tooth derived from. Long story, and I don't even remember it, but pretty interesting stuff. So they're obviously
wait. That was the worst story ever. I found out you just said that I found out this awesome story about being long in the tooth, but I don't remember it. You should go figure it out.
Cohesion is what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
So the line last week, despite acting any sort of skill on the right-hand side, lacked any sort of cohesion. And when Jack Driscoll came out and they had Mailata come in, who they need to figure out whether or not this guy's a rugby player or a football player, and, shit or get off the pot, for lack of better words, because this guy's been on the team for years and they don't trust him to be out there, so they should be cutting him and replacing him with someone else. Like, your actions tell you whether or not you can trust the guy to protect your quarterback, and obviously they can't. But it's the right offensive line. So I was against the Eagles last week because it was the wrong offensive line. Is the same reason I'm back here. This would have been more of a favorite, I think, if we looked at things, if Dallas wouldn't have gotten called for the offensive PI and Dallas won. I think we're looking at a 3, probably 2.5, 3. This went from 3 to 1, right? The line started at 3 and it got bet down to 1. So west to east, that's fine. But I'd say more so just traveling in these conditions and going on the road. I know you touted a pretty good record for McVay on road games. He has 0 record with road COVID games, right? They've got no protocol. They've got no pattern. So they're going to be out of sync. And since we're stating old stats too, I think it's my buddy Dragon sent me the stat that the Eagles are 6-12 without Lane. They're 36-17 with Lane. So I'll take that. That's a pretty damn large sample size there, and I'll roll with Lane and the Eagles home squad. And you bet that Carson wants to have a bounce back game. And last comment, if Doug Peterson can't scheme up and realize that when his quarterback's taking pressure, that he shouldn't have the longest average depth of target in the league. He had the longest average depth of target, at least through Sunday games,
Chuck and
when
Duck.
he had no time, like no screens, no draws, no bubble screens, like nothing. If you can't make that adjustment over 5 or 6 days, if Aaron Donald starts wrecking things through the middle, I think we've got a bigger problem here than just one bad game. So I'm going to roll with the Eagles. I'm going to go head to head with you. I'm going to get myself back to 500, and we'll be in good shape.
Sounds good. Well, listen, or we could land. Oh, we could land on that one number, and we can push again. We can have an 0-1 in there. But I want to point out one more thing because you brought up going on the road this year, and this is from our super contest. I got to give a hat tip to Andrew Rance here, who runs it for us. He sends out these absolutely great recaps from the week. He had it last week. Home teams were 9-7 in the opening week. Favorites were 8-8. Home favorites 5-3. And home dogs were 4-3. So obviously still early, but just good to pay attention to. Seems like a pretty even split, but something we're going to pay attention to in this year of COVID, how that kind of plays out there. Also, by the way, just for the record, I was 5-0 in the Super Contest as well last week. We just wanted to make sure that the public was aware of that, off to a fast start.
You got to give those out on air, bud, or no one cares.
Well, I gave most of them out. I think most of them were my picks on air. So, and also we know about the importance of getting lines. Sometimes by the time we go to air, they're not the same Super Contest lines that we have there. So, also very important there. All right, let's go to our final game that we have on the slate to discuss here today. That would be going back to Denver. Greg, we were on Denver last week as one of the games. This week, the Broncos are headed east to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. They're getting 7 points in this one. We are both on the same side on this, so I'll let you open, Greg. Tell me who you like and why.
Yeah, I like that defense, right? So just like you mentioned, right? I thought it was a valiant effort by the Giants, judging by how good that Steelers defense looked, especially against the run game, right? So, I think the ability to bottle up Melvin Gordon, right, and really put the game in Drew Lock's hands. Listen, I'm not going to put Drew Lock with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, right? But dude still needs to prove it, and I think he's fine. But this is a really, really bad spot, and just a really tough start to the season for him. Tennessee's defense, he got him at home. They almost snuck out of there with a win, but now he's going to go on the road to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was also on Monday, so you don't have any sort of rest or anything like that. But Ben looked good. He shook off the rust. And he's hitting the receivers there. AJ Boye is going to be out, or at least it looks like he's going to be out. He didn't practice today, so that's a good thing, right? You'll have the Steelers wide receivers running rampant. It looks like Connor's going to be able to play. My only thing that I'm circling here is I'm keeping an eye for the linemen. It looks like both guards, DeCastro and Wisniewski. I don't know if Stefan Wisniewski was starting for the Steelers, but even if he wasn't, you're still cluster injuries at guard. And then Banner, when he got carted off the field or walked off the field, it looked pretty bad. He was their tackle. Mm-hmm. So I do need to do a little bit more research as we get closer to game day on who's actually going to be going out there. That's the only thing I would say that might give me any pause. But I like everything other than that, especially if Banner's going to go out there.
Yeah. I think that the offense for the Broncos really struggled. I don't know. Cortland Sutton, I believe, is still questionable for this week. Jerry Jeudy, while he had some great plays, he had some huge drops for them. I think
rookies, bro.
Yeah,
rookies.
Yeah, and rookies and no preseason. So definitely a little amped up trying to run without the ball. Phillip Lindsay I believe, is out for this one as well. And I don't think people realize how good of a back Philip Lindsay is. I mean, I think the guy made the Pro Bowl, right? In his first
Yeah,
season.
he's out.
Yeah.
And Sutton looks questionable.
Right.
So
I think that, I mean, these are all things to pay attention to. Drew Lock did a good job. He was hooking up with Noah Fant, seemed to be popular. I don't think he didn't have a lot of pressure, but I will say that I thought Vic Fangio did a good job rolling him out of the pocket a little bit, getting him a little bit more time to throw. I thought they were just a little bit more creative in their play calling to give him some time. And the defense couldn't get off the field against Tennessee. There were some long drives that they had in there. So I think that this Pittsburgh Steelers defense is just on another level. I think they have been since they got Minkah Fitzpatrick. And I think that Denver is really, really going to struggle to score in this one. And for that reason, I'll take Big Ben and I'll take the Steelers. This offense was so bad last year. It was so bad. I think they were scoring 11 points a game and winning. Like, I don't know how you do that. And now, and I think that that's how bad their quarterback play was. I think that the defense is just amped up that they got an offense that's going to score some points for them this year. And I look for them to rout the Broncos in their home opener. So I will roll with the Steelers in this one. I'm going to go with like maybe a 30, 35, 13 type of score in this one.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, you're saying cigar game like I sent you Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, well, I knew in a game where the total is going to be under 20 points, as I told you, you can never have a cigar game. So I'm good.
I had some good momentum going in. I was feeling big.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, to recap for you this week. Greg likes the Jaguars +8 as they head to Tennessee. I think we're both on the Giants +5.5 at Chicago. Is that right, Greg? Did you come on?
It's not official for me, but I'm fine with you on it.
All right, I'm rolling with the Giants +5.5. The better beware game of the week. Watch out for the San Francisco 49ers as they head to New York to take on the Jets. Greg likes the team total overs for Green Bay and Tampa Bay, going with the Bays, at 27.5 for both of them. We are going head-to-head on the Rams and Eagles. I'm rolling with the Rams. Greg is flying with the Eagles. And then we both like the Steelers minus the points against the Denver Broncos. Of course, Chris Portente has his lock of the week. That is on our Instagram page. We're not going to give it to you here this week. We're going to make you actually go over there. Last week, he had the Jaguars, and they won outright, everybody. So I don't know what he's got cooking this season, but he's off to a hot start, as we all are here at Wingfoot. Last word, Greg?
Go Birds.
Oh, man. And on that note, I just threw up. Until next week, everybody, remember, it's not whether you win or lose. It's whether or not you cover the spread. For Greg Hoyle, I'm Joe Messeri. Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Wingfoot Locks. Talk to you next time, everybody.